Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me this week for another episode of The Chamber Within. I want to talk about a few things today that I find seemingly related, and it starts with this: how self love leads to setting boundaries. What are boundaries? Well, they are the very things that are our personal non negotiables. For instance, you could be the type of person who says, I don't want to be called names. And with respect to others, I do not call other people names. And of course, I'm not speaking of terms of endearment, right? I'm speaking of the kind of names that are meant to hurt you, like stupid, lazy, etc. You get what I'm saying. This house of respect that you build for yourself is where your peace lives. If someone were to cross that boundary, even after great communication on how to be treated, which is simply not to be called names. That may be your only boundary. You may deal with multiple other things that do not affect you, but the name calling is where you draw the line. So if you were the type of person to not have this boundary and you allowed this to go on, then that is a lack of boundary. Boundaries mean there are consequences to crossing that line. So when someone crosses that line, you let them know that this cannot go on, and you are firm in this decision, and either they respect it or they leave you alone. Now, I'm not speaking of triggers, right? Like if a person triggers you with a phrase or a word that sparks a negative reaction within you, you, me, we are all responsible to how we react to our personal triggers. We deal with them. We figure out why they create such a stirring within us personally, and then we learn how to become greater than the story that we tell ourselves about them. So if someone were to say, that's stupid or you're stupid, how much do you believe that to be so in efforts for it to affect you, right? Specifically as to why you're moved by this word. This is a responsibility of our own reactions. That person doesn't know us. That person may not even be speaking to us directly or trying to be hurtful. But what I'm speaking of specifically is malice, a deliberate action to cause harm, or rather, a disregard to our house of peace, as it were. These are people in our lives that know us intimately. Please don't call me this. Please don't do that. Whatever your boundary is. So I'm not speaking of like random triggers where you're out in the world. I'm talking about the people that you allow into your space, into your circle, into your life, have access to you. So let's begin with what not having boundaries looks like, right? This is called self-abnegation. It is the denial or abasement of oneself. It is self-sacrificing, humiliation, degradation. It's when you cause yourself harm so as not to address the harm another may be causing you. Just like we can learn to be our own best friend, we can learn to be our own worst enemy. The choice is ours. Many people who have an awakening experience go through that process of saying, hey, you know what? This behavior is no longer sustainable and it has to stop. I mean, this is when you can actually sit and take inventory on your life and say to yourself, this behavior doesn't create life within me, because I feel like in order to keep the peace around me, I'm needing to continually shrink myself down to the smallest particle in the room just to appease others. Their wants and needs are far more important than mine, because I'd rather just make them happy right now rather than myself. I'm fine with not being the center. At any rate, they might get mad at me for thinking of my needs first. I wouldn't want that to happen. And anyways, my needs are fine on the back burner. I'm totally okay with being small right now. Now, does that sound familiar? If this does sound familiar, that's why we are talking now. This behavior stops today. And not because I say it does, but because you have made the decision to do so in your own life, and of course, in your own way. Someone very close to me told me that someone very close to them mentioned, only you know when you've had enough of this behavior. I'm talking of yours and theirs. Everyone is accountable to their choices. If you have already created a house of peace with no trespassers allowed, then congratulations. You have made the choice and transition needed to live authentically. If this is your first time hearing of such a space, then welcome to the threshold of the house of peace, where only you have the key to utilize and enter. Creating a level of self love and respect is a good thing to have. It's your compass, it is your knowing of who you are. With this new acquirement, you aren't making an enemy out of people and othering them. In fact, you learn to then respect other people's boundaries. Here's what I mean by this. Example one: you suggest a really great restaurant to a friend of yours, and they respond with, "Oh, no thanks, I don't want to eat there." Whatever their reasoning, doesn't matter. We don't push, we accept, because we now understand that boundaries are a two-way street. This is not an attack on us for suggesting that they should try it. It's their personal choice to decline it. You can still enjoy the restaurant if you want to. If you choose, that's your business, right? You're moving on. Example two: you offer to help someone. That someone says no. However, it may or may not be to their detriment in your mind, right? Because in your mind, you can be like, well, they need me. And they are well within their right to decline. What's your response? Okay. Let them go on about their day. Their reasons are their own. You see how this is working? A lot of times we tend to help do and be for others as a distraction. It's much easier to fix others than to work on our own selves. Boundaries are for all, and the more we understand this, the better we can become at communicating, offering but not pushing, seeing a situation and allowing it to unfold without meddling, thinking that we know better and can do better than they can. Sometimes we can get in the way of other people's growth. Now I'm talking especially to the elders out there who see our children and our younger family members learn about life in their own real lives in real time. I know you want to save and I know you want to help, but sometimes our own personal superhero cape, right? You can put that cape down. You can let it rest. We can trust that things will work out for the better always. And if they really truly need you, they will reach out. They know we're there. We're already the type of person to give the shirt off of our backs, right? So we don't need to impede or encroach on others who wish to do it themselves. And I bring this up. Here's why I'm saying this, because there's an interesting correlation between those who lack self-respect and boundaries to also be the type of people who are codependent. So that's why I bring this up. And I know because I have been there for many years. I've read many, many self-help books that, steered me to finally see how my actions were attributing to the behaviors that I didn't like. It starts with us. It starts with a choice. Compassion for others is important, not pity. Anything we require of ourselves, we must give to others. We want grace, forgiveness, love, support, and we want our boundaries and safe space to remain intact. I'd like to read an excerpt from a book called Your 7 Energy Centers. Now, this is, again, talking about chakras, but this is speaking to the heart chakra. Okay. What is true compassion? In order to answer that question, we have to make a distinction between compassion and sympathy. We tend to use those words interchangeably, but in order to understand the subtleties involved in developing the heart chakra, it helps to make this distinction. Compassion comes from the level of our higher self and gives to another what he or she really needs in that moment. Sympathy comes from the level of the lower self and stands in the way of what the soul really needs. Sympathy allows us to feel sorry for ourselves, to indulge our weaknesses, to slide into a woe is me slump. Sympathy validates the sense of victimization rather than helping us see our challenges as opportunities. Now, compassion, on the other hand, dips into the pure fires of the heart to uplift others so they can realize their full potential. Compassion supports the process of soul refinement. Compassion doesn't leave someone who is hurting where it finds him. It's okay to support a child, a friend, or a loved one, but when our caring cushions them from learning their lessons and growing from them, we aren't doing them any favors. Sometimes, those we love the most need a dose of reality, a wake up call. There is another difference between compassion and sympathy. Sympathy can be overbearing or smothering rather than supportive. We can't force a flower to blossom by pulling apart its leaves or by overwatering it, but we can make sure it has enough and not too much air, water, sunlight, food, the right environment, and the right nutrients. Having done that, we can only let go and allow the flower to unfold according to its own inner timetable and inner strength. The same thing applies to the souls in our care. I just wanted to add that excerpt because I feel that it is important to not only heal, right, through the things that we've been through, and no matter how old you are or how young you are, but to also be an example to those that are coming up um, underneath us, right, in years, those who are younger than us, to be an example in how to treat others. You don't want to smother or, completely tune out what, someone who is may not be asking for help but is explaining a situation. It's really powerful when you can watch a child come to a solution on their own. I've had a conversation with my own daughter where she was just really upset about something. I can't remember what it was. And I wanted to give her some advice, but I knew she wasn't in a place to receive it. And I want to say it was maybe an hour later she had came to the realization herself. And I loved it. I loved it because, um, we have conversations here and there about being a self advocate, about allowing things to be what it is, or maybe there's a lesson in this. And she was able to calm down, first of all, and then secondly, come to the conclusion that, you know, the advice that I was going to give her, she came to herself. And I said to her, I said, I was going to say that, but I knew you were mad already and it wouldn't have been helpful. It probably would have added fuel to the fire. And she said, it sure enough would have, for sure. I'm not saying this because I haven't lived it. I'm not um, telling you anything I haven't experienced. I am literally sharing lessons that I've learned, and I know it might seem very specific, but I know that there are universal truths. And I know that I'm not alone. I'm not the only parent that has had to back away. I've said numerous times again in my own personal life that we learn how to parent differently as the child ages. I wanted to help with her buttons when she was in kindergarten. She said, I can do it. And I was like, oh my gosh, she's messing up her buttons. Her sweater is slanted, but she has to learn how to button her own shirt, how to tie her own shoes. And learning boundaries allows you to respect others' boundaries. So it may seem like I'm going back and forth between you and another person, but that literally is life. As we learn, we teach, as we grow, we are able to see how to help others grow. And it's important for me to get that out because some of us may get stuck in the baby phase where we are not respecting our adult children or burgeoning adult children, right? They might be teenagers that are needing to learn how to deal with their own consequences and such. But that's where I'm coming from with that. And I just wanted to add that, self-respect and healthy boundaries, which is saying no when something does not align with our personal values and saying yes to things that do. This alignment is more than just a word. It really is a way of life because when you align or have alignment within yourself, it often offers, a genuine alignment with others. When you know who you are as a person, you are able to see others very clearly. You can tell when someone's being genuine or not. right? You can see right through it. You have this calmness within you, this realness where you have filtered out the things that no longer work for you. You're not playing a role, you're being who you truly are. How this helps our reality is that when we are honest with ourselves and who we want to attract in our life, it brings those like minded individuals to us, right? Being afraid to say, I love to read comic books out loud will never place you amongst those who do. Specifically in my case, being honest about my spiritual awakening and things that I have experienced allowed me to interact with others who have as well. Putting words to it, saying it aloud, um, uh, interacting with people um, and their uh, content creation about their experiences. And I'm like, yes, I've been through that. And thank you for helping me be seen. Being authentic to who we truly are promotes growth. It just does. Shrinking the self does not foster such an environment. It never has. And in fact, it annihilates the very thing that brings us joy and makes what truly excites us impossible to experience firsthand. If you are an advocate for yourself with a great sense of boundaries and self love, you become a living example for others around you. Being is such a powerful teacher. Thank you for listening this week. I really appreciate you stopping by and giving me a listen. If you have any questions or comments, you can certainly follow me on Substack at Dawn Ardean, DAWNARDEAN, Dawn Ardean. If you want to be a part of future spiritual advice segments, or you just want to write in a comment instead of a question, you can email me at thechamberwithin@yahoo.com, or you can even follow my TikTok page. I'm still cultivating and growing, and it's at the_chamber_within on TikTok. Thank you so much. Have a great week. Bye bye.